Joining me now is the author of international bestsellers, including his latest work on democracies and death cults, Douglas Murray. Let's start in the US, and we have a war of words between Donald Trump and Ilhan Omar, and that's intensified further with President Trump suggesting she is in the country illegally and she may have even married her own brother.
Yes, this story has been around for a while. Quite a lot of journalists have investigated this story in the past and have come to that conclusion, rather staggering, though it might seem to many of us. The allegation is that, yes, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar married her own brother in order to get him citizenship in the United States. She has always skirted around answering the questions about this. And now President Trump has raised it. I suspect she's not going to be able to skirt around that for much longer. There's a lot she has to answer about this. And so far, she's been able to stonewall it by just sort of neglecting to answer the investigative journalists or giving them information that seems not to be accurate. I don't know if she's going to be able to keep getting away with this now. The spotlight is so bright on her and her family relations.
Douglas, there's also talk about how Ilhan Omar accumulated such wealth in a short period of time. She's accumulated millions in wealth when she went into the job to be a politician with nothing, but she's hardly alone there. That seems to be a problem in the US. Let's go to the UK now, where two Afghan nationals seeking asylum have each been sentenced for the rape of a 15-year-old girl. Footage of the assault is so harrowing that it was feared it could trigger a riot. The crime was committed just months after these two individuals came to the UK as unaccompanied child asylum seekers. One defence lawyer argued that cultural differences played a part. He said that the defendant is not used to a society where women are free and deemed equal to men. He is morally at sea. There are massive cultural barriers that have become massive moral barriers. And that again seems to be at the heart of this debate, Douglas. Should the UK have migration or have these asylum programs with cultures that are not really compatible with Western values?
Well, I like the way in which the defendant's lawyer phrased that. It almost sounds like there's sort of equal moral culpability in that he happened to come from a different society and we don't have the same norms as that society. So it's a kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other problem. The British public didn't ask for people like this to be in their country. We didn't ask to have sometimes more than 1,000 people coming illegally by boat each day. We didn't ask for that. And we didn't ask for the importing of people from cultures where women are regarded as chattel. And for this to be the defense, you know, I mean, I have seen this before and have seen cases like this before. There was a case I wrote about in my book, The Strange Death of Europe, almost 10 years ago, where a man from Eritrea gave an interview in which he said, well, where I'm from, you can just grab a woman off the street and rape her. And I think the British public, like a lot of other publics, are getting kind of sick of this sort of allegation that, as it were, our culture is somehow sort of to blame for this. Well, I'm sorry, if this isn't a line in the sand, if this isn't a norm we can keep established, that actually, if you are going to come to Britain or any other Western country, legally or illegally, and preferably nobody doing it illegally, then they should at least realize that the norms of their society do not apply in our countries, and that our countries do not regard women in this 7th century light. And it's really appalling. And you mentioned, Rita, that a crucial fact there about the footage. There is a strange thing, which we've talked about before, that is going on in every Western country when it comes to this, which is that the authorities are worried about the public finding out about what's happening in their own country. And so the authorities, including the police, effectively behave as a mediating body We can't release this footage, or we can't release it in full, otherwise people will become angry. Well, first of all, we have the right to know what's happening in our countries. We have the right to know if people are assaulting women on our streets or dragging them off and raping them like that. And we'll come to our own conclusions about that. We're adults and we have the right to respond to that, including with absolute disgust and opprobrium. But this endless idea, I think the authorities think something like they sort of keep a lid on it. If the problem is going on, you put a lid on it and you try to make sure that the public know as little about the problem as possible. Otherwise, the public will be unpredictable. I think this is way past time as a tactic from the authorities, way past time. The public want to know what's happening. And, you just think back to the extraordinary wordplay we've had in the last 25 years in Britain. Remember that it's taken all these decades to talk about the Pakistani mainly grooming gangs in the north of England. But just consider, years, not only was that information covered over, much like in these recent cases, but we get these euphemisms, grooming, which is a nasty term. It's definitely a term. It's not nice. Somebody's being groomed. But that term is completely inadequate for industrial scale raping of young women in your society, the torturing of young women in some of these cases, the physical, sexual, not to mention psychological torturing of these young women. And again, in every way, whether it's literally trying to suppress footage or trying to minimize the acts by playing around with the English language, all of this is way past time. The public deserve to know what's happening in their country, and they do not deserve to have authorities acting as some kind of mediating body between the public and the facts.
Douglas, you're right. That preoccupation with social cohesion is a problem right here in this country. I think authorities think it's preferable to keep people in the dark as long as social cohesion is not threatened.
These are cases so severe and appalling that in any normal season, there would be a hunt for the people who held secondary responsibility for the crime. That is, the people who allowed these people into the country. If you have a rapist coming into your country, there should be heads rolling, metaphorically, in departments in Whitehall. There should be immigration officers, border force officers, and others, government ministers, people in the Home Office and elsewhere, held responsible for this. We have inquiries into everything in the UK. When the Home Office a few years ago, when Theresa May was in power, there was this huge scandal because some people who had come on the famous Windrush a generation ago had an accident in their immigration status that suggested that some of them, many decades after having got into the UK, should actually leave and didn't have permanent means to remain. Now, that was a huge scandal. And the Labour Party wanted to bring down the Conservative government over it. The Labour activists and so on still go on about it. Why on earth, when people are coming into the country and committing violent rapes and violent crimes, is no one ever held responsible? No border official, no local council official, no immigration official, no Home Office official, no Home Office minister. In what other situation, if this happened once in a normal political season, a minister would have to resign because they've let a rapist into the country. But we're in this situation where nobody ever has to take any responsibility, and the public need to just keep suffering through the results of inept border policies, inept immigration policies, and a completely lax a system of legal and illegal immigration. I think it's absolutely astonishing. And I'm amazed that the British public are not calling, and the British media aren't calling more for us to actually identify the people in government who are responsible for these lapses, because they're not one-offs. They are constant, and there should be constant pressure to find out who the people are who have been allowing this to happen, and to make sure that they do not go off into some happy pensioned retirement.
Now, let's talk about something a little bit more frivolous. We've had a few days now to digest the latest episode of Prince Harry embarrassing his family, possibly embarrassing the entire country with his thirsty attention seeking. This time it was an ill-advised appearance on Stephen Colbert's program where he tried to be a comedian. I don't exactly know what was going on. We had a incident. Have a look at this sketch. Try to understand this.
So if you was treated like a king for the day, what would you want me to do for you?
Beg for me, probably.
You'd want me to do what? Beg?
Beg. Beg.
Beg?
B-A-K. Beg.
What?
Bake.
Oh, bake!
Douglas, I don't know what to say. Do you feel any secondhand embarrassment as a Brit? Just what is Prince Harry playing out? Why would he go on Colbert and do whatever that was?
First of all, yes, I feel a deep cringing embarrassment. I wanted to cover my eyes as you were showing me that, Rita. I never want to see it again. There's more of it now on the screen. Look, first of all, the whole thing's excruciating, of course. But normally in a situation like this, when somebody tries their hand, for instance, at comedy, the normal thing to say is, don't give up the day job. Except you can't really say that in this case, because it's not clear what Harry's day job is. It's sort of don't give up not doing anything in the day. It's just excruciating. He seems to me to be intent on destroying the mystique and some of the power, really, of the monarchy as an institution. The monarchy as an institution is incredibly important in a constitutional democracy. And Prince Harry has been trying to sort of spend down the endowment of public sympathy and even, I think, interest in him. And this is just the latest example of him going about this. I always have the same thing, Rita, when I see this, which is I think, what a terrible way to spend your life. He's clearly looking for a purpose. It's a bit odd to try to find it on the Stephen Colbert show, but put that aside for a moment. He's clearly trying to find some kind of purpose. But just imagine if he had done what duty actually demanded of him. He would be in the UK at the moment with his wife, and they'd be performing royal duties. They'd be raising funds for deserving charities. They'd be opening sports facilities and school halls and things to, sort of enamored crowds of people who just wished them well. And they could actually be doing good with their lives. And instead, there's just this sort of peripatetic wandering around TV studios and elsewhere. And it's just such a bad way for him to spend his life and to spend down, if you remember back, 30 years or so, to spend down the considerable public sympathy and indeed even admiration and love that existed for him. It's such a curious career. I hope at some point that he realizes what a mess he's made of all this, how incredibly actually unrewarding it is in every sense other than the financial sense to spend your time doing this, that nobody wants it, nobody likes it, and that the other life he could have had, the one that he was actually born to have, is the life he should be leading. And it would be one in which he could find meaning and purpose. He could be raising funds for charities to do with the armed forces in which he served. He could be addressing questions of, how better we look after soldiers after they return from conflict, for instance. There's all sorts of really useful things he could be doing. But just think about it. There, instead, he is making some lame jokes, trying to be a lame comedian in a manner which, as I say, I just want to cover my eyes and ears when I see that footage.
Oh, same here, same here. I'm not a Brit, and even I was cringing internally and externally. I think you've hit the nail on the head. He's lacking purpose, and I think it shows. He seems lost. He seems unhappy, and it is such a fall from grace. He was the most popular royal after the Queen for the longest time before Meghan came along. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Great pleasure as always. Thank you.